The importance of meaning. We can grow so tired of one another that we have no meaning for each other. A man and a woman can get so tired of each other that they have no meaning in their relationship. One can get so tired of a subject that it no longer has any meaning for us. A person can do their daily work dutifully for years until it no longer has any meaning for them. An individual may search for new adventures until they have no further meaning, and they do not know what they are doing. This is the journey of substance abuse. So ask yourself about the meaning of meaning, and the source of meaning. Let's therefore consider first of all, whether meaning is important or not. Then if we decide upon reflection that meaning is important, let's ask ourselves what it is that we want. A good formulation of what we want goes something like this: I want to find meaning in everything, or I seek more meaning, I dread a state of meaninglessness and pray to have more meaning in my life, and so on. In discussing aim and the possibility of recurrence, that is of living one's life again. It is a possibility, and if nothing changes in our essence, that is in our deepest and most real part, then the recurrence of one's life, if this happens, will be identical with the life one has passed through. We will live the same life, and perhaps live it over and over again, but have no memory of it. This means that at death, we return to that part of time where we were born, and are born into the same surroundings, the same parents, the same siblings, the same neighbors, the same classmates, the same pets, etc., and live again the same life, in fact live again and again the same life because nothing has changed in us. We can then ask what our aim is in connection with this possibility of reliving our lives and answer, thinking of my life as far as I can remember it, I see that I took very little in. It was like a dream. It had very little meaning, and in fact whole years are blotted out in my mind. I would like to have the power of feeling meaning in all the experiences I had if I were to relive my life. This perception is correct, and as a rule we are not there yet. We can therefore speak of someone and remark, he is never at home. And this really applies to us all. We are never at home, or very rarely anyway. We are nearly always out. So our experiences have little or no meaning for us. If someone, say for example, remembers their life far better than we remember ours, and perhaps their life has had more meaning, we can inquire and ask ourselves why or how this might be so. Noticing how much we have forgotten along the way. In their case, perhaps as a child they did not play with toys so much, were less under the power of their imagination, seeing what life was really like from an early age. Most of us never thought of life as something to think about, taking it all for granted, which is why it has little meaning for us. We are simply carried along by life, as by a torrent, thinking we are going somewhere, to some clear goal. It is only when we realize that life is taking us nowhere that it begins to have meaning. Reflecting thus leaves us with two clear impressions. One is that to formulate your aim with regard to the possibility of having to relive your life at death, in terms of wishing to have more meaning, is correct, and the second idea is that unless we see the true nature of life, we cannot get more meaning out of living it. Therefore, how can life have more meaning for us? Let's then take this reflection as the basis for an attempt to expand on meaning. Although people do not realize it necessarily, they live by meaning, and when things become meaningless, they feel hopeless and useless. Life offers certain meaning, otherwise everyone would be unable to live, or would feel that suicide were better. The meaning that life gives is not permanent. Perhaps you have noticed that imagination enhances meaning, but reality tends to exhaust it. There is no correspondence, of course, between imagination and reality. The one can never pass into the other, because they are utterly different things. It takes people a long time to see this. Namely, that imagination can never be fulfilled in reality. Imagination is on one plane, reality on another. However, most people get a great deal of meaning solely from their imagination. Imagination feeds meaning, it is one source of meaning. But the meaning that is formed by the action of imagination does not correspond with reality. On the other hand, reality itself has its own meaning quite apart from imagination. For example, a good dinner is reality, and not imagination. It has meaning of its own. If you try to separate meaning derived from imagination and meaning derived from life, that is from reality, speaking in the ordinary sense of the word, you will begin to see the difference between these two sources of meaning. So consider then this phrase, "You have destroyed all my illusions." This phrase is used in the sense of suffering, of being wronged, of being seriously damaged by someone, of being, as it were, ruined. Illusions lie in the imagination. If all the meaning that you derive from your imagination is destroyed, is that a loss? The answer is both yes and no. It is quite possible to destroy a person's meanings too violently, and do harm. Yet meaning derived from imagination eventually only complicates life, and often later actually prevents any real situations and relationships from developing. When one first makes their personal debut into life, that is when we advance more or less independently for ourselves and leave the home of our upbringing setting off into the world, we have absolutely no idea that our imagination about life and people is in any way different from the possibilities offered by reality, and obtainable from it. That is of course nothing extraordinary, because at that age we exist chiefly in imagination. Our meanings are derived chiefly from source, and as a result all experiences are dreamlike. By this term is meant that reality does not correspond with imagination, and since we are chiefly in imagination, everything is like a dream. In fact, we are mostly dreamy, not there, or not at home. We are always out. Because if our meanings are formed in imagination, then we are living mostly in imagination, so that life is a far-away unpleasant thing. Reality is unreal in fact, and we cannot come in contact with the meaning that reality offers us. You have heard it said that everyone has his dream woman, or her dream man. Such dreams are intensified through the media, social networks, peer pressure, and in many ways formed in the imagination, feeding on our own energies, for our life force is required to keep them alive. All such forms of imagination derive their strength from ourselves. It is then true to say that all this takes place in most people, often throughout their lives, and exhausts them in many different ways, making them unfit for any real relationships or right contact with real people. Imagination is one of the things that the work speaks of as needing to be struggled with, and fought continually. There are some drastic work parables about the imagination. Returning however to the idea that a person is usually out and is rarely at home. If a person is in their imagination and its meanings, they are then always out. They are not at home. Such a person does not see you. They see their dream of you, their imagination of you, an illusion that is then projected onto you. This is not a satisfactory basis for any real relationship. A tremendous shock has to be undergone for a person to pass from the meanings derived from imagination to the meanings that reality offers. Reality in this respect is at first sight a poor small thing compared with all the wealth of meaning that the imagination supplies a person with, day and night. In the work it is taught that you have to try to see yourselves apart from your imagination of self. This is a long task, very difficult and painful. You may think you are charming but not notice you are usually rather rude and always lazy. Just in the same way, you have to try to see others without imagination, which is also very difficult, for it is imagination that blinds everyone in every direction. It blinds all of mankind. An allegory of the work about imagination with regard to mankind in general, compares us with people in a hall of turning mirrors. These mirrors are so arranged that everyone thinks they are going forward towards some goal. The mirrors are however turning, and people are going round and round in ever-repeating circles. It is imagination that makes people believe in progress. Look for examples in your own life experience. Note that imagination has its roots in individual people's imagination of themselves, the entirely false meanings they derive from their own imagination. Imaginary people meet imaginary people. Imaginary people dress up to meet other imaginary people dressed up. Imaginary people converse politely with imaginary people. Imaginary people marry imaginary people. Imaginary people kill imaginary people, and so on. Since people are based on false personality, which is entirely composed of imagination, it is not so surprising that this is the case. All their meanings, in fact most of the meaning people live by, are derived from false personality, and therefore from imagination. Real meaning exists apart from the meaning derived from imagination. But it is difficult to find this without the help of something that is not based upon imagination. The action of this work is gradually to destroy imaginary meaning and to substitute real meaning in its place. Work on oneself signifies, among other things, destroying imagination, for this work is to make the real side of a person become active and grow, the false side of a person to weaken and become passive. This is called awakening from sleep. We have spoken about meaning derived from imagination and meaning derived from reality. We have now therefore to speak of meaning derived from the work. The whole of the work, all the ideas connected with the work, all that it says about man being asleep, about the possibility of man's awakening, about life, about mechanicalness, man's inner state, efforts on oneself, consciousness, our level of being, new ways of thinking, new ways of understanding, new ways of taking things. All this can become the greatest source of meaning anyone can possess. The meaning that the work, that is the meaning that esotericism and its unchanging concepts about man and his possibilities for inner rebirth can offer, belong to an order of ideas that can transform all the meaning that life provides to us. If a person begins to take life as work, then their whole relationship to existence begins to change, because the meaning of life changes for them. They see life in a different light, not as an end but as a means, and this enables them not to identify with life and its happenings as they formerly did. They do not necessarily expect that life is going to take them anywhere, but know that if they take life in the light of the work, it becomes their teacher. The work gradually shows them how to take what happens in life, so that they learn from life and all that happens through their experience. In this way life becomes their classroom. Whatever happens, they have the work to hold on to, and know that the explanation it provides them of the real meaning of their own life cannot be destroyed by anything in life itself. But if they take life as an end, the case will be different, then they will never understand the work and never have any new meaning. From the work viewpoint, life is a means and all the work teaches about self-evolution is the real end. This, however, is not easily understood, nor are we to suppose that it is easy to take life as work. When an unpleasant situation arises in life, one does not easily take it from a work viewpoint, especially if it touches the meaning of ourselves through which we feel self-satisfaction. That which we derive from imagination and false personality. Abiding in it as easily as if we were really ourselves. No one of course understands the work. We know a little about it, but few have fully applied it to their being. That is, the work is not third force for them. Life is. Only in a vague way and at times by means of another's help, is the work a third force for anyone, that is a neutralizing force stronger than the neutralizing force of life, and the forms of imagination derived from life. It is difficult to change, and no change is possible as long as life and imagination are the source of meaning for us. To think in a new way is the starting point of inner development. And this is exactly what the Gospels say. The Gospels are also esoteric teaching, talking about man's possible inner evolution. The Gospels say, unless a man thinks in a new way, he cannot gain the kingdom of heaven. This is unfortunately mistranslated as unless a man repent. To think in a new way is to find new meaning, and to be given new ideas is to have new thoughts. But people do not see what is meant. They hear this work and still think as before. So believe that many of the ideas of the work are odd or fantastic. But it is they who are so. None of the ideas of this system are odd or fantastic. How long it takes depends, and how many hard and horrible experiences we need before we catch glimpses of the fact that the work, the Gospels, and all of esotericism are not saying anything odd or fantastic, but offer something real and absolutely necessary to us. Once we begin to be aware of this, through individual experience, new meaning enters us. And at once our relationship to life alters a little. Old meanings lose a little of their force. Psychologically, we live in a world of different meanings, and new meanings enter us only when old meanings die. One cannot serve all one's old meanings and expect to have new meanings in their place. This may be difficult to accept at first. We all have our meanings, the meanings that we follow. Perhaps even believe that our meanings are the only ones, are absolutely right, or perhaps we believe that there are fixed meanings for everything, in fact standardized meanings. This is of course not the case. The meaning of every single thing can change. Think of some general changes in meaning since this century began. A thing can lose all meaning for you, then it is meaningless and you have no relationship to it. You are related to a person through his or her meaning for you. If this meaning changes, your relationship changes. Meaning relates us to a thing or a person, and if all meaning fades, there is no relationship. But it will depend on the source of your meaning. Life divides people, the work unites people. If a person takes life as work, everything can come to have new meaning. As a result of new meaning, new parts of centers are touched and new connections made internally, so then new interpretations become possible. That is, the person becomes a little more free and not so mechanical. Since the source of these new meanings reaches us through the ideas of the work, this change depends upon how much we feel the ideas, how much we evaluate the work. Therefore, one must think of the meaning of the work, and what evaluation of the work means in order to understand better this third inexhaustible source of meaning, whose origin lies beyond mechanical life, in the conscious circle of humanity.